What's up, guys? Wanted to bring you a brand new video of the coolest thing I got this week. This is the Dell UP2715K 5K monitor. It's definitely, in my opinion, the coolest monitor out on the market right now, at least as far as high resolution is concerned. The only alternative to this, of course, is the iMac, but that's a computer in and of itself, so it doesn't really relate to this, because this you can use as a monitor with your PC, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So let's jump right in, and just wanted to give you guys a quick overview of this monitor. I've had it for about a day so far, and wanted to talk to you about how it compares to 4K and how the programs and games run on it. So just to show you guys real quick, we'll jump into the control panel here, and as you can see already, there's just a lot of screen real estate. And if you look here, I'm running a 4-way SLI with GTX-980 superclocked. I'll get to why I'm running the superclocked and not the classifieds, although I have 4 GTX-980 classifieds as well. So let's go into the change resolution, and as you can see here, it's 5120 by 2880. That's the native resolution at 60 Hertz, and that's the 5K resolution. And this is for the Dell UP2715K monitor. So first thing you'll notice when you get this monitor is, to run 5K you need to actually use 2 DisplayPort 1.2 connections in order to get this kind of resolution. The reason being, DisplayPort 1.2 cannot handle more than 4K at 60 Hertz. So in order to run the full 5K at 60 Hertz, you need 2 connections. This is one of the biggest pet peeves, in my opinion, that I have with this monitor. I really wish they were able to incorporate DP 1.3 and have a single cable running to your graphics card, and that way it'll just make things much simpler to use, and also neater in terms of cable management is concerned. But anyway, there are 2 DP connections going to the graphics card, and as I said, I'm running 4 GTX-980 superclocked, and for this monitor to work at 5K, you have to connect both the DisplayPort connections to one graphics card. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot span the connections between 2 or more graphics cards. Otherwise you will not get 5K. You will get only 4K at 60 Hertz as your maximum resolution. Trust me, I just tried this yesterday. It does not work. When I had 3 GTX-980 classifieds installed in the system, I connected one DP connection to the first card, and then the second one to the second card, and obviously was running 3-way SLI. And I tried to look under change resolution here, and this option 5120 by 2880 was just not there. It just auto sets to the 4K, which is 3840 by 2160, and you have no other choice. In other words, it doesn't even see the second DP connection for it to enable this 5K resolution. And you can adjust all the OSD settings to your heart's content, but it's not going to work unless you connect both DisplayPort 1.2 connections to the same graphics card. And the only gaming graphics card right now, I believe, that has 2 or more DisplayPort connections per card is the GTX 980. I believe the 970 may also have this, but let me know if I made a mistake there, and if AMD also provides that, but I believe they don't. So the GTX 970 or 980 is really the only way to run this resolution, unless of course you're in the prosumer market and you have the Quadro cards, or like the Fire Pro from AMD. Anyway, a couple of other things that I noticed with this monitor: the screen clarity, the image clarity is just superb. The colors are absolutely brilliant. You can go through the OSD, and I'm not sure if you guys can see it in the recording here, but in the OSD you can select the color space, and I always set it to sRGB, and that's the one that's 100%. Adobe RGB, I believe, has 99% for this monitor, but sRGB is my favorite setting. It makes everything look really good and clean, and here's my high-res wallpaper of World of Warcraft, even though I never play that game. But anyway, that's essentially the basics of the monitor here. It looks absolutely fantastic in terms of the image, but also in terms of the hardware. It has this nice glass finish on the edges, as opposed to the 4K monitors, which I have, the Dell UP2715K, which has a plastic edge. And although that looks good, I think this looks way more professional. It kind of pops out and gives it a really clean finish, and it just looks great on my desk. It has a very similar build to the other Dell 4K monitors in terms of the stand, the back panel, and the way it connects. You simply have to just lie the monitor on its face and then connect the stand and lift it up. It's really that simple. There are no screws necessary, no fiddling with screwdrivers or any other tools. You just snap it in and go. It's a great design. I really like it so far. So yeah, I mean, this is obviously one of the best monitors on the market right now, and I couldn't be happier at this point. So let's jump into a couple of other things. So if you're into content creation or photo editing, I assume you obviously have some good programs to run that. My default program, of course, is Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and open Photoshop, and this is a word of warning. If you're using a 4K monitor or above, you have to run Adobe CC 2014. The reason is you can actually scale the UI to 200%. That's what makes these icons and everything else visible. Otherwise, everything else is going to be teeny. In fact, let me show you guys real quick. If I uncheck that, we have to, of course, restart Photoshop, but let's go ahead and do it. I mean, look at this right here. You can see immediately when it's not scaled. Look at how tiny the icons are. I can't see anything, and I'm wearing glasses right now. So if I were to lean in, maybe I have to use a microscope to look to see what each of these icons is, and it's just a pain. So you definitely want to enable that feature. And if you don't have Photoshop CC 2014, I would say that it's going to be really hard to work with programs like any of the Adobe programs, actually. So make sure you're running something like that, and of course it's usable at that point. So if you're into Photoshop or photo editing or content creation, using Photoshop CC 2014 on this 5K monitor is a real pleasure. You want to crank up the settings, make sure your GPU is being used, and set enough memory for the system to use, and it's really fast, and everything's clean. It just looks great. You just go ahead and do a bunch of different things, but let's just for instance throw on a filter and see how it does. This is of course running the 5960X at 4.4 gigahertz, and I'm also running 4 GTX-980 superclocked GPUs. So as you can see, it's real fun to work with content creation here. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this on the desktop, and the reason is this is actually the 4K image, so you can see how much more real estate there is in 5K. This is a full-size 4K image. We can just look quickly here, 3840 by 2160. But that's what's so cool about this monitor, is you can actually work with 4K content and not have to take up the entire screen. One of the coolest things about this monitor is it's 14.7 mils. That's what 5K is. In fact, you can do a quick calculation for those of you who are skeptical. 5120 by 2880. You can see it's 14.745 million pixels. That is actually greater than my old setup, which is the 330-inch monitors in portrait mode, which was about 13.2 million pixels. So we now have a monitor that has a higher resolution, a single monitor that has higher resolution than 3 30-inch monitors. Just think about that, guys. That's absolutely insane. I mean, the 30-inch monitors are huge. They took up the entire desk. I had to order a custom stand just for it to, be mounted in portrait mode. And they had those bezels in between, which was okay at the time, but now we have a single monitor that's 27 inches with a high PPI, and it has a higher resolution than that of the 3 30-inch monitors. I just absolutely love it. And let me show you guys real quick on a real 4K video to show you how big it actually is. Let's see, I hope this is, let's see, I'm not sure. Yeah, there you go. So this is actually full 4K resolution, and as you can see, all the real estate around this window here is pretty cool. So you can actually, move it over there. You can be browsing the internet. You can pretty much do a bunch of different things. So it's just, I feel that having 4K is pretty cool, but 4K has already become obsolete in a way, because now is the time for 5K. Now here's a 1080p video, guys. Look how small the window is compared to a 5K screen. Isn't this awesome? In fact, you know what? Let's have a little bit of fun. Let's open up a couple of different 1080p videos. Oh, actually, I think this one is, it's 2560 by 1600. This is the size of one 30-inch monitor right here. So, oh, this is the Battlefield 3 story. The jet scene's pretty cool. But anyway, I mean, it's mind-boggling to me. Just a couple of years ago, I had the 330-inch monitors, which was awesome at the time. But now this one screen is, so much better, with more resolution. It's just incredible. I just love the way the technology scales, and it's a real, awesome thing to have and experience. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you guys about is 5K and gaming. Gaming on this monitor is actually a pretty big issue because of the 5K resolution and the current setup of GPUs. Because the 980 has only 4 gigs of VRAM, almost all the modern games simply refuse to even start. They just crash when you open. The reason is, it keeps hitting the VRAM buffer and causes an error and crashes to desktop. This happens in Battlefield 3, which is kind of an older game. It happens in Battlefield 4. It happens in Assassin's Creed Unity. It happens in Far Cry 4. It happens even in Batman Arkham Origins and many other games. And the reason is, when you crank up the settings, even if you don't use a lot of AA at 5K, the VRAM requirement is quite steep. With the current setup of GPUs that I have, the 4 GTX-980s, gaming at 4K is a breeze. In fact, the previous setup that I did a bunch of videos in, where I had 2 GTX-980 classifieds, also with 4 gigs of VRAM, at 4K, there were really no issues gaming at that resolution with all the bells and whistles turned up except AA, but at 5K, it's just 4 gigs is simply not enough. So this is one of the biggest downsides right now. I'm essentially waiting for the next crop of GPUs to be released. Hopefully the 980 Ti or the Titan 2 with 8 gigs of VRAM, and that should definitely cover the VRAM requirement, and we should be able to game on it without issue. I've tried Battlefield 4. I had to reduce the settings, I believe, down to medium in order for it to even, open the game, and even then it was like maxing out the VRAM at around 3950 megabytes or 3.9 gigabytes of VRAM. So it's just 5K, is possible right now. On the older games like Grand Theft Auto 4, even with ENB, I was able to play in 5K, and it uses less than 3 gigs of VRAM, so that was not an issue. But any game that uses a lot of VRAM, you're going to run into problems, and no GPU. Even I would say, of course, if you have the Titan or the Titan Black, that's definitely possible. But when it comes to gaming, the Titan, pales in comparison to the GTX-980. So if you have 4 GTX Titan Black superclocked like I did before, it's definitely worth a shot getting the 5K monitor now. But if you don't, and you have just 980s or some other GPU, forget about gaming with all the options turned up, because the card simply can't handle it at this time. Dead pixel test, you can go to any one of these and then just go to full screen, and if you look at that, everything's fine. It's just a great monitor. It's like literally no problems with it so far, and I would highly recommend it if you're a content creator. If for whatever reason you're into gaming and gaming alone, there are some better options out there, like the 4K monitors that can be handled with the current set of GPUs. But if you want to just game and use the 5K monitor, you're going to have some issues unless you have multiple Titans, and even then it may not have enough graphics power to get through. But I would actually suspect if you have 3 or 4 Titans, especially 4 Titans, you should be fine, because I used to use that setup with 4K surround, which is a much higher resolution than 5K. So you should be able to play many of the current games with that. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, this is, I just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick overview of this new Dell UP2715K monitor. It is the I believe the only 5K monitor out on the market right now. The only other one, as I said, is an iMac, but that's not really a monitor, it's a computer. So this is a fantastic piece of hardware. I highly recommend it if you're into graphics. It's just a really cool thing, and I'm very glad that I got it. Of course, some things would have to be worked out, like the new graphics cards coming out would help gaming, but I still think that this is definitely something to buy if you can swing it. Thanks for watching, guys. Drop a like if you like this video. Leave your comments below and let me know what you think. Always subscribe and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.